Welcome to it's a wonderful special edition of Podcast Unlocked this week because I am very privileged to have Adam Orth here, a man whose name you may know for reasons he may wish you would forget, but a man whose name you're probably going to remember for reasons he's going to be extremely proud of and happy about because, Adam, you are hard at work with your team at 310 Games, studio you co-founded, on a game called Adr1ft, or Adr1ft, which I'm going to ask you about in a little bit. But
I bet you are.
So this is a first-person experience game. We saw it unveiled at the Game Awards back in December.
Yep.
Give me the quick elevator pitch, the space elevator pitch.
Space elevator. That's pretty good. Haven't heard that one before. Literally have not heard that one before.
I thought that was sarcasm, and you've heard it 8,000 times.
I've literally never heard that before. So.
I give it to you as that's my gift to you.
I'm actually really upset now that I've given this pitch so many times and I haven't thought about that. So, score one for you.
I'll take it. In any case, Adr1ft.
Yeah. Adr1ft is the story of an astronaut who wakes up floating in space among the wreckage of this destroyed space station.
Yeah.
With no idea how she got there, no idea what happened, and a really badly damaged EVA suit that's slowly leaking oxygen. And you basically have to survive and get home.
So, full respect, that sounds an awful lot like the Sandra Bullock film Gravity. Do you shy away from that? Is that, I mean, you know, because people tend to be like, oh, that just maybe write you off, or, I mean, what do you think about that?
You know, when I first started working on this game, I just wasn't aware of Gravity.
Yeah.
And when I started using the metaphor of kind of the destruction of my personal life and the destroyed space station, it became really clear that, you know, this was a game that I really, really wanted to make, an experience I wanted to have, and a story I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And about a month into working on this, I discovered Gravity. I didn't know about it beforehand. And initially I was devastated because, you know, you want to be original
right
all the time as much as you can, even though that's next to impossible when you're creating things. So I was devastated, and I was like, I can't make this game anymore. But then at that time in my life, I was really rebelling against being told who I am and what I can do and what I've done and you know, all these things. And I kind of said, F it. And, you know, there's room for everyone. And, you know, Gravity is not the first space disaster piece of entertainment ever. And, you know, you could certainly say Gravity is derivative of some other things in some ways. But
take that, Sandra Bullock.
That's not the point, right? The point is that it's a story I wanted to tell, and I'm not going to shy away from doing that because there's some similarities to it in a really great movie. I mean, if people people compare Adr1ft to Gravity, that's awesome. That's great for us. It's actually been helpful for us because their expectations are set for what the game
for an Oscar caliber film.
Right, yeah, Oscar caliber film. So initially it was devastating, but I've just accepted it because I know what we're doing is very different.
Yeah.
And if people, you know, I see people online all the time saying, oh, so basically Gravity the game. Well, it's not basically Gravity the game. It's a space disaster, you know, that happens to, you know, be characterized with a main character who's a woman.
Yeah.
I only had two choices, so right, and I didn't want
Space Dog.
Well, I didn't want to make the traditional Space Marine game, this heroic kind of.
We got a few of those.
Yeah, and it's just not something I was interested in. And I think the game that when people play the game, hopefully, they will see that we're trying to do something.
So
different.
It's you know, it's a Dante's Peak volcano situation where you sort of independently had a similar sort of premise, cool idea at the same time.
But I mean, like, you know,
but
there's a phenomenal film called Thief, and there's a phenomenal game series called Thief.
True.
They're very different, but They share a name. So it's like, are you not supposed to ever make a Thief game anymore?
Right.
Or, we can't make Thief because the Michael Mann film.
But you weren't inspired by the film at all. This was obviously something that was going on.
It was maybe a happy accident, I guess,
if
you want to call it. But it didn't feel happy at the time, right? I felt like I definitely had a minute where I'm like, I can't do this. But passed.
Sandra Bullock apparently made like $70 million off that movie, so maybe you'll make $70 million off Adr1ft.
Who's going to turn that down?
So you sort of alluded to this a little bit with your personal life, which we'll talk a little bit about. But where specifically did the idea for Adr1ft come from?
Well, I had an idea for this kind of space disaster game, but when the whole Twitter controversy happened, I really believe that you have to put, if you're creating something, my personal belief is you have to put as much of yourself into something, whether it's painful or exhilarating or happy or whatever it is. Like that's where
where the art comes from,
right? That's the best art, right? And I felt like if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to flinch at all. I'm going to really make a game about that thing.
Is it a therapeutic experience for you?
I wouldn't say it's therapeutic, because making games is a very long and not an immediate process at all.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say it's therapeutic, but I had a lot of opportunities to talk about that stuff when it happened, and I didn't on purpose because I knew I was going to make this game, and I don't think anyone cares about that stuff anymore. And so me having something to say about it, it's my personal statement about it. It's not like this has to happen. I have to say something about it, but it's just the way I chose to funnel that into my creativity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've kind of alluded to it. I was going to get to this, but it now seems like as good a time as any. I mean, so, it's if you're not aware, you found yourself in a bit of a pickle on the internets.
A bit of a pickle on the internets.
When
I'm the grandfather of the internet mob.
Yeah,
when days.
Leading up to the Xbox One's launch, you were an employee at Microsoft.
I was. Yes.
You were working on the TV stuff, correct?
Correct.
Which we'll get to a little bit as well, but. You tweeted, people were very up in arms about the idea of this console having to be always online.
Yep.
And you said, you tweeted, "Sorry, I don't get the drama around an always online console. Every device is now always on. That's the world we live in. # deal with it." And then it just turned into a absolute nightmare for you, which ultimately cost you your, in some capacity, whether it was voluntary or not, it's not my business to ask, but you are no longer at Microsoft, obviously.
I'm not.
And so do you think it was the hashtag that pushed people over the edge? Do you sit there, do you think about, maybe not now, but at the time, do you just break it apart in your head? Do you think about it? Or was it that you started replying to people and just going further down that rabbit hole that you'd opened up for yourself?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. It's a super unfortunate thing that happened. It was super embarrassing, and obviously the results were traumatic in a lot of ways. But I think the main thing about that incident is I don't really think about it a lot anymore. And although I do still hear about it on the internet, it's some people's definite favorite pastime. The thing is, and I've talked about this, and I done a couple lectures about it.
Yeah, GDC last year, I think you were there, right?
Yeah. It's really about, like, I definitely disrespected some people by having a sarcastic conversation with a friend. It's not an excuse in any way. It's just what happened.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have done it in public. I should have done it over a beer at a bar or something like that. But, it's, it was an unfortunate event that thankfully is behind me, and it's got me to where I am now.
Well, that's a perfect segue. I mean, do you regret it, or is it one of those things where, because I mean, for me, I got was divorced a long time ago, and it was super painful, but then it led me to a great place in my life now. So is it a similar thing for you where you wouldn't take it back even though it was a terrible thing, or do you wish you could take it back?
I would never take it back because it's you can't take back life.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And it sucked. It absolutely ripped my life apart. But, you know, when things burn down, new things grow. And that's how I choose to look at it.
I mean, I don't want to, pry too much here, but, I mean, you locked your Twitter account for a while, but eventually came back.
On the first, right when it happened, I think I got more than 10,000 Twitter followers in a couple hours. It was crazy. So
make sure get right on that. I don't want to miss a word of this. Stay right on that mic for me.
I locked it down because I didn't know what to do. So, look, it was.
I mean, how bad did it get? I mean, how much did the internet outrage seep into your real life?
I don't think anything that I can say about it here would be any different than what I've publicly said about it already.
Sure.
And, I appreciate the desire to want to find that out from me in this interview, but I think that it's such a painful thing, not only for me but for my family too. That
understandable.
It's just not worth getting into, and it sucked that it happened, and I'm upset that I offended people, but somebody told me today, find me someone who hasn't said something stupid on the internet and you'll never find them. Right? So, we all make mistakes in life.
Of course.
And it's about how you recover from that and what you do next. And that's really what Adr1ft is about.
Are there any audio logs, little Easter eggs that just say deal with it in the game anywhere where you poke fun at it? No. We don't do that.
No. I've got a sense of humor about the whole thing.
Sure.
But it's just not that kind of game. It's not a kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk some more fun things.
Sure.
The game itself.
Yeah.
You've got Oculus Rift support. Seems like could be an incredible Oculus Rift experience on the PC.
It's pretty great.
Is that the if you've got the hardware, is that the ideal way to experience this game?
I mean, I don't want
with
to
all
say
due
that.
respect to other platforms,
well,
right?
I don't want to say that because it's different. It's a very different. Even if it's the same experience, it's very different. The wonderful thing about VR that we're finding, at least in our game, and what we're doing is that initially I just kind of approached the VR thing as extra immersion plus.
Sure.
Which it does give you, but what I wasn't prepared for was how it actually elicits emotions when you're having it's really hard to describe.
Well, it connects you to the game in a much more fundamental way, right?
In a fundamental way, because everyone knows or has their own idea of what that being stranded out in space feels like, and when you're able to even challenge the way someone thinks about that or meet it, it's very powerful. And I've had some people try the game in virtual reality who were moved to tears. It was, I don't think it's because we're making this amazing artistic thing. I think we're tapping into a primal emotion in people with the subject matter and the situation, and then you add in this way to be in it in a way that you've never been able to do before. It's like, as a developer, that's gold. It's so powerful. So, we planned for VR from the very beginning, and we've designed the game to support that. So, we feel really fortunate to be at this moment of excitement about it, because very soon there's going to be a bunch of platforms out there that support this game, and we can't wait to get them out.
Well, yeah, on a similar note, I mean, we're on our IGN's Xbox podcast here, but I have to ask you, because you've sort of never, I don't know if you've fully addressed this or directly addressed this. We just saw GDC this week. Sony unveiled the latest version of Project Morpheus. They gave it a target release date of the first half of 2016. Is Morpheus something you guys would come back with an update for later down the road?
Absolutely.
You playing with it?
If Sony was interested in something like that, and we, as much as I can say, we were definitely talking to them. We have Morpheus kits.
Yeah.
It's something we're super excited about. I mean, at the risk of endangering my life again, I've always been a PlayStation fanatic, so getting this game on PlayStation in a new way is really important to me personally.
Yeah. Serious question. I'm not trying to troll you. You mentioned the tiers. Has anyone with Oculus, has anyone ever physically thrown up playing this game? Because it's a zero-G space game with an Oculus Rift.
No, actually, it's the other way. People never get sick with our game because of a couple things I'm not going to talk about. But in my experience using VR, our game Adr1ft is unique in the fact that you're not grounded to a floor.
Right.
You can move in any direction, and it's slow and dreamy. And that allows for some really non-queasy gaming. And we've been really lucky. We've had people who refuse to, I refuse to try this demo. I just get sick all the time.
Yeah.
And I force people to do it. And when they do it, they're like, I feel great. Nothing happened. It was great. So I think there's a mix of happy accident and stuff we're working on to try to do that. But it's very non-queasy, and I think
it's good news.
If you're afraid of getting sick and playing Adr1ft,
don't be.
Well, I'm not gonna say don't, but our we're almost batting 1,000 there, so it's like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we've probably had more than 500 VR demos of Adr1ft so far at various events and things like that, and I can only count on one hand the people who've gotten sick.
They're good odds.
Pretty good.
I've got to ask, is there a significance to the fact that there's a number 1 wedged into the middle of the name of the game? Is there?
Well, what do you think?
It just reminds me of the 1990s or early 2000s a little bit. So I'm just, I guess I haven't thought about it deeply.
Is that a bad time? Are those bad times for you?
No, not at all. It's just the old origins of leet speak when E's were 3s and.
Well, look,
I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I haven't really talked about it before, but it's not a big stretch to understand that you're
one person.
It's one person. You're alone. It's one is the loneliest number.
I like that.
And I've taken a lot of shit about that on the internet. Believe me.
Well, if the game,
but it doesn't matter because here's the thing, right? Who cares?
No one cares.
No one cares.
No one cares.
And the thing is that if it means something to the people creating it, that's all that matters, right? If you don't like the one, and if you're not going to buy the game because there's a 1 in it, you have bigger problems.
Somewhere there's a marketing manager, perhaps at your publisher, who's like just cringing right now. It doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter what the game's called?
I mean, look, that's just the way it is, and it means something to the game, and it's it's just there. Deal with it.
So you've had a eclectic career. I did a little research on you before. I unfortunately hadn't had the opportunity to meet you before today. You were a recording artist. You toured. I've heard, this is not on your LinkedIn, I've heard you're friends with Rivers Cuomo. So you have this big music background. I mean, how do you end up in video games if you're...
It's actually not that big a stretch. I mean, I've always been a gamer.
Yeah?
And, me and my brother used to get new Atari cartridges and play the games and take out magic markers and paper afterwards and draw brand new levels for whatever
absolutely.
we did. And we would send them into Atari.
Yep.
And every 3 weeks later after that, we would get a
The form letter back, right?
Letter back, but always with stickers and patches.
That's awesome.
And cool stuff. And it really just, it's always been a part of my life, just like music. I was a musician here not here, where are we?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
You've been traveling a lot.
I was a musician in Los Angeles professionally for a while, and I signed a publishing deal to write music for film and television. And I begged my publisher to find me game work.
Yeah.
And this was in the mid to late 90s, and music business had no idea.
Yeah, other than Trent Reznor doing the Quake soundtrack, right? Because he knew the id guys.
Even then, you couldn't tell record company people about it because that was even like almost not even on their periphery at all.
Yeah.
So I got a job doing music for a PlayStation 1 James Bond game, Tomorrow Never Dies. And what happened was, back in this time, in the mid to late 90s, it was a bit of the Wild West in the Hollywood game studio video game making business.
Oh, yeah, that was when DreamWorks started the studio, made Trespasser.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, unbeknownst to me, they had already hired somebody else to do the same thing also. A guy who was hugely famous then, and still now, Tommy Tallarico.
Yeah, still in the games business, too.
Still in the business. But they sadly informed me that the music that I composed and recorded and performed and turned in would not be going into the game, which was soul-crushing. But I had been hanging out in the development studio, and this was at the time where my record deal kind of not really vanished, but I was on Interscope Records, and you have regime changes, and my A&R guy was suddenly no longer at the label, and there was no champion for me there, and things happen.
Yeah.
But I was burnt on it at that point, and I didn't. At that point, you'd have to start all over again, and I couldn't do that. So I became a tester when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then I floated around the Los Angeles area, and I worked at every interactive studio at the time. But what I really wanted was to be a tester at Sony Santa Monica, and I was incessant about bugging them constantly, right? I finally got a job there, and I was testing on Twisted Metal Black, and I became friends with David Jaffe and everyone at that studio. And he pulled me out of tests and made me a junior game designer. And my first real game design job was working on Twisted Metal Black. And then, a bunch of other
Yeah, you went to Sony with God of War with David Jaffe. You worked on a few Medal of Honor games at EA.
That was I actually left Sony Santa Monica to go work on Medal of Honor because I was really passionate about that. Excuse me.
And then PopCap on a bunch of their IPs, LucasArts on a number of things. And it's funny. And now look where you are now. I mean, you're designing your own. I mean, this premiere experience, the game that a lot of people are looking so forward to, and it
took me a long time to get here.
Well, but the point is, like, Michael Condrey, the studio head at Sledgehammer, was in here a few months ago in the lead up to Advanced Warfare's release. Told a very similar story. I mean, he started as a tester at EA in Seattle, and look where the two of you. I mean, it just shows that if you are really serious about getting into game design and like become a tester, right?
Well, I mean,
that's a foot in the door, right?
All the time, like, how do you get into the industry? And that's how I got in. And I don't know if that advice is dated or not anymore because, yeah, that's a great way. I mean, becoming a tester, you get this foundation that you don't get anywhere else because you get to learn the business and the each discipline. You get to learn about the coders and the engineering. You get to learn about design, get to learn about art, audio, production, everything that happens in a game development studio. So if you apply yourself there and you're good, you know, you can get out, and that's what happened to me. And I've actually over the years, I've put a lot of people into test positions who are now game designers at big places.
It's like your coaching tree, your Bill Belichick coaching tree.
Somebody gave me a shot.
Yeah, of course.
So I like to help people out too. And you know, it's awesome when I can take a guy off Twitter who seems reasonably bright and engaging and get him a job testing at Naughty Dog. Like that's
pretty rad.
That guy's working on The Last of Us and things like that. So somebody gave me a shot, so it's my duty to do that.
Paying it forward.
People. You have to, because otherwise, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but you know, you've been a lot of places. You got such a fascinating career, but it does seem, you know, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work on the media side for 12 years, a couple of console generations now. It does seem like, is game development inherently a pretty nomadic life? Do you think?
It can be. I mean, we've all read the stories and seen, you know, I've seen some pretty terrible things in my career of AAA game development. But it's hard because A, it's kind of the nature of the beast, and B, it's should never be, right? But you know, it's more and more I compare it to the film business, right? It's more of a, you know, if you have to have the stomach for it. And when I see people with families bouncing around chasing these things and getting laid off, like the Kotaku story that recently came out, where it's told this long story about this family who kept going places and getting laid off, and they having more kids and they need a house, and it's just like, to me, no game job is worth doing that to your family. Nothing is worth doing that to your family, but you have to also admire the passion of these people who want to do it. And being in the game development industry it's a gift. It's so cool. It's like we have the greatest job. It's amazing. But the reality of the nomadic nature definitely exists. And, you know, it's hard to have security on these big, giant teams and these big, giant projects. I guess it's also hard to have security when you start your own studio and a smaller thing. So it's all about how you manage that risk and what you're willing to kind of sacrifice for those things. But yeah, I would say if you want to exist in the big AAA realm, it can be nomadic for sure. I mean, I've seen people, friends and colleagues, moving all over the place.
Do you think that the middle class of games is dead or dying? You know, games we would see in the original Xbox, PlayStation 2 era. Because it does seem like it's gone very much. You sort of alluded to the film industry where it's AAAs and indie titles.
Well, yeah, I mean, the risk of making these mid-tier titles is too great, right? Who's going to make those now? The larger companies aren't going to do that, and the little guys can't do it.
Right.
So, you know, and if you can do it, it's a risk, right? It's like, is it a new IP? Is it continuing something? You know, I think there's smart ways to do it, but from a development standpoint, if you take like a $10 million game, which would be maybe a mid-tier thing, maybe a little higher, right? Like the risk of the return on that investment is too great. That's why people won't do it.
Yeah. Do you think are we in a healthy position right now? I see the
worried? Video game industry thriving right now. It's just different.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's no middle in this big kind of AAA console thing, but look at mobile. I mean, there's more games than ever now. It's
true.
And maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know, but I don't see the game industry being in a bad position.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Glad to hear a veteran game developer say that. At Microsoft, we sort of alluded to it earlier, you were a member of the core design team responsible for overall feature design on Xbox One with focus on interactive television. It says your LinkedIn.
That's my LinkedIn.
I do my research.
Probably change that.
Well, you were.
Yes.
Are you happy with the way the TV functionality turned out on the Xbox One?
It's hard to say. My experience with the whole Twitter thing kind of, it's hard to go back to that stuff.
Understandable.
And I don't really watch a lot of TV, so it's not really part of my life. It felt good doing it at the time.
Yeah.
I hoped it was something that would take off, but it doesn't seem like right now it's going somewhere. But I think there's a space for it. It's just, how are we going to do it? Not we, but how is it going to be done? I never think that you should just, I think there's a lot of smart, talented people who want to make that happen, and I think maybe it just wasn't the time and wasn't the right, just for whatever reason it didn't work. A lot of reasons, but I don't think that is something that is a dead idea. I just think it hasn't been done correctly yet.
As somebody who was on that team and worked on that, are you saddened or disappointed by the way that, for various reasons, the sort of non-gaming features of the Xbox One have kind of been minimized or brushed aside over the last year or so?
This is going to sound terrible, but I'm not really familiar with all the features on the Xbox right now because I don't use it a lot because I don't really have time. I'm spending every waking moment making Adr1ft.
Yeah.
And I'm sadly out of touch with those things right now. So I don't know if I can be the best, give you the best answer there.
Fair enough. I figured, you had a potentially unique perspective. I figured that at least ask.
I'd have to spend some more time checking it out, but I don't think I have a great answer for you there.
I think you'll have a great answer to this. We've sort of covered tangentially your very eclectic career. What's the number one lesson you've taken from your past game development experience and applied to Adr1ft?
Never give up, ever.
Right on that microphone.
Sorry.
I want to hear that.
Never give up, ever. I've been doing this for almost 18 years now, and I'm right now doing the thing I'm most inspired and interested in, the most important thing. Sorry, every other game I've worked on. But, if you believe in something, you can't ever give up on it, because once you do,
what's left?
Well, the death of dreams is a horrible thing to think about. And, I've been lucky. I've had a really interesting career, and I've been able to work with some amazing people on some amazing things. But now for me is, this is the beginning. And, I want to keep making these games. We built our studio around the idea of the FPX. And, it's really important for us to hopefully be seen as a leader in making huge quality, high quality products in that area, because, and it sounds weird to call them products, but it's just, we spent so much time in the AAA side of things.
Yeah. And
we learned so many good things there. People often talk about AAA like it's a negative thing. It's not. There's great, amazing AAA games.
The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto 5. It's a mile-long list.
We don't have enough hands to but
Halo.
We learned all these amazing things, and we can apply them in a different way. And we're seeing that we can do new and different things, and having taken the gun out of your hand, and then how do you interact with the world in a interesting and cool and meaningful way is super challenging. And that's what inspires us every day, right? To kind of, how are you going to get an immersive first-person experience where you can interact with the world and do something cool and sell a fantasy to someone and make them want to keep playing, keep feeling, keep having a great experience with video games.
Right, because there is no combat. in this game.
There is no combat in Adrift. There is not a single weapon. There's not a single bullet. There's not even another single living person in the game. So, the enemy in Adrift is the environment.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so before I get to my last question, that you sort of started to touch on it you mentioned first-person experience, which is, of course, what the game is. That it's a subgenre that seems to be taking off with stuff like we've got Adr1ft, Firewatch, which we were just highlighting last week on IGN. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, et cetera, all coming down the pipeline now.
I mean,
why do you think this?
To me, it's ridiculous to even be mentioned with those games. I mean, it doesn't even.
I've seen those games. I don't think it's ridiculous at all. I think they all look fantastic, including Adr1ft.
Well, thank you. But those are the games that inspire me, and the things that I'm looking forward to the most, and those are the games like man, I cannot tell you how many times I've played Proteus or the Stanley Parable, things like that. Like, those games are just so inspiring to me, and they showed me that you can do things and you don't have to do the same old thing. I mean, it's not a new lesson, but
right.
seeing Proteus was a huge inspiration for Adr1ft, like massive inspiration. I can't stop with that game. I'm obsessed with it. And having these smaller immersive experience games that are out there, it's great for everyone, because I don't think anyone out there is going to have a problem with a massively interesting and fun, high quality immersive experience that's not 65 hours, right? I want to be able to. I often talk about Adr1ft being like, it's like going to see the director's cut of Interstellar at the best IMAX you can.
Yeah.
It's like a $30, $40 night, and you're going to be entertained for 3 hours.
Right.
And maybe you'll go back and see it again. And that feels like a premium experience, entertainment experience to me. And we kind of think about Adr1ft a little bit like that.
So why do you think that this subgenre is taken off? Do you think, is it a reaction to years and years of corridor shooters?
Personally, for us making it, it's totally a reaction.
Yeah.
Don't want to make those games anymore. Love those games.
Sure.
Play those games. Devour those games. I don't want to make them. Right? And there's enough games that have violence and shooting out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just, at the end of the day, when you're done developing your game that you're working on, you care about, like, what do you want to say? How do you want to portray yourself and your team and tell this story? And how do you want to give the player a new way to interact with the world? And I'm just going to hammer home on that. It's just very important to us. And, I just can't shoot anyone in the face anymore. I can't do it. And the other guys on my team feel the same way, and we're totally united with that. Now, that's not to say that there wouldn't be ever any violence in our games, but I don't want to put the player in a position where they're committing violent acts.
Right.
Because there's a lot of interesting ways to make games that don't require violence, and that's not a new concept either. It's just, that's what we're doing.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect segue into my final question for you, which is, when the game comes out, it's due out in the summer, how do you want people to remember Adr1ft?
Hopefully a couple ways. I mean, I want people to remember Adr1ft in the fact that they had a great mechanical experience. Like, it was fun. Maybe Adr1ft is not really, maybe it's not fun for people. It's very stressful, but
tense,
stress, frightening, claustrophobic sometimes. But I want people to feel like they had a good game mechanic experience, which I think we have in our using oxygen as a shared health and propulsion resource. It makes moving, every movement counts in Adr1ft, and because you're constantly expelling oxygen.
Right. Yeah. Do you burn more to get faster over the next can, or do you risk floating over there slowly, right?
So there's these little micro decisions that hopefully are meaningful to people. And so I would hope people key into that. It seems like when people are playing the game now, they really, really like that. I want people to remember that it was beautiful to look at, and it made them,
It's Unreal Engine 4. I think you've got that part covered.
Yeah.
The beauty part covered.
Yeah. Great engine. And it's making our game, it's exceeding our expectations for the way the game looks. And then from the narrative, I want people to feel like, hey, this is not a normal video game type of story, and it was different and maybe unique in that way. And I want people to maybe think about, maybe after they follow the journey of this story, like maybe just a quiet moment or two of reflection upon, well, how would I do that? Or maybe I can, take something away here. It's not a teaching thing. It's not about learning. Yeah. It's just, hopefully you took something away from it where you pause for a minute and go, that was different and cool, and I want to maybe try that again.
Well, Adam Orth, thank you so much. The game is Adr1ft. We're looking for it in the summer of this year, so it's coming up real soon.
PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam, and then
Oculus if you got
every possible VR platform that we can get it on. I mean, it's I actually take this opportunity to really hammer home, because a lot of people don't understand that we're making a traditional game, right? They think, oh, it's not only VR. I don't really know how that happened. I mean, I kind of know how it happened, but it's a strange thing. Like, even peers, they're like, oh, I didn't know you were making a traditional game also. But it's actually the traditional game first. That's the most important thing.
Right, of course.
And then even better with VR. So don't forget that.
All right, Adam Orth, thank you. For more on Adr1ft, we've got it all week here on IGN.
Thanks.